afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the organizer, particularly Jennifer, for the invitation. So this afternoon, what I would like to do is present a project which I never thought I would be spending more than a third of my professional career. And so the title is a journey because it's basically the journey of the eggplant as well as my life's journey from somebody who is a bench professor, somebody who never talks outside of the scientific circle, into somebody who has to go out and from an R&D, I have to add the other D. So let me just, okay, I didn't get this right. Okay, so this is the eggplant. Eggplant is a generic term, but for this particular project, the eggplant that we're talking about is Solanum melongena, and it is one of the members of the Solanaceae of nightshade family, where you have tomatoes, potatoes, chili, and peppers. It's more commonly known in the West as aubergine. I never knew the term until, I always thought it's a color. So, but we use, and there are a lot of local names. It's called brinjal in South Asia. It's talong in the Philippines, and every Asian country has a local vernacular name for it. It's a very popular vegetable. It's both economically and culturally important, particularly in Asia. It is a healthy food. It has only 25 calories. It's 92% water. And it is consumed both in rural and urban areas. Kids eat it because anything you put with eggplant, it absorbs the taste. So if you put meat, it will taste like meat. If you put other spices, then it will get those spices taste. For me or for us, eggplant falls within the category of an orphan crop, and there are several definitions of orphan crops. And basically, this is I use this terminology to emphasize that this particular crop has very limited importance in the global market. So this is basically a domestic crop. It is not neglected. It is very important, but it does not have the scope of a global market that will merit investing so much money and resources. This is also, eggplant is also adopted in local environments, and they are very basic in supporting diversification of diet in those regions. So just to give you a comparison of how minor or how orphan is eggplant, so you can see here, I compared it to maize and soybeans, which are the typical crop commodities that have been made into genetically modified crops. And you can see the scale of difference. It's about 100 times less than maize, and in terms of area, and in terms also of production volume. So this is one crop that typically you will not find any company investing $100 million because they will not get the money. So, but this is such an important crop in my part of the world that only the public sector will be are left with the task of bringing a solution to a very important problem in this particular crop. So this is the top 10 eggplant producing countries in the world. As you can see from the map, most of it are in Asia. There are two. This is the latest data, and so it's Asia and Africa. I think the Middle East is considered Asia under the United Nations classification. Okay, so why are we interested in making this particular crop a BT crop or a GM crop? First and foremost is, as I said, it's a very important vegetable crop grown and consumed in the three geographies that we had this project on. And its biggest production constraint is due to an insect, which is called an eggplant fruit and shoot borer, or the scientific name is Lucinodes orbonalis. To control this insect, you use a lot of insecticides, and when you use a lot of insecticide in my part of the world, then it's basically, too frequent, too a mix of everything, and usually they are applied with no personal protective equipment. And because of the frequency of use of this pesticide, then the cost of production rises, and that impacts the income of the farmers. 40 years has been spent on trying to breed resistance for this particular insect, but none has succeeded using conventional techniques. And at the time that we started this project, the BT technology has been, the proof of concept has been done by a company in India, which is Mahiko. And we thought that maybe there's a possibility that we can work together and use this technology to eggplant. So these are the three countries that were involved in the project: India, Bangladesh, and the Philippines. And as you can see, the importance of these particular vegetables in these three countries are enormous. In both Bangladesh and the Philippines, they rank #1. When I first started working on it, I couldn't believe that eggplant is the #1 vegetable in the Philippines. The production area, as you can see, even with that small number, it still is the #1 vegetable grown in those countries. It's basically a small, resource-poor farmer's crop. You can see the eggplant farm size, average farm size, it never goes to 1 hectare. And there are about 1.5 million farmers in India who grow eggplant, and a few more in both Bangladesh and the Philippines. This is the major problem in eggplant production. This is the eggplant fruit and shoot borer, and as you can see, the most destructive stage of this insect is the larval stage. And because of feeding damage, it results into around 70 to 80% yield loss. And it attacks the stem, it attacks the shoot, the flowers, and most especially the fruit, which is the marketable part of the crop. And of course, even if you would like to consume pesticide-free, I don't believe that anyone would be paying any money to eat this. But this is how much damaging this particular insect is. These are the current farm practices to control EFSB. In Bangladesh, they spray 140 times in a cropping season of 100 to 200 days. This basically translates to every other day or every day, and we all know that this is not how we are supposed to use pesticides. Same thing in the Philippines, and a little bit less in India. But then, as you can see, a survey was done in the Philippines, major growing areas in the Philippines. The farmers know different farm practices. They know IPM, they know crop rotation, biological control. But when they are confronted with this problem on eggplant, look at, this is a real a survey done in 2010. And as you can see, they will opt always for chemical control, even if they know that they can use IPM and biological pest control. They just couldn't take the risk because there will be no money on the table, food on the table if they do that. What types of pesticides they use? All the bad ones: organophosphates, pyrethroids, carbamates. And they are always beyond the level of recommendation. If you're spraying every other day or every day, then you certainly would exceed those limits. This is a farmer, an eggplant farmer in Bangladesh, and this whole bunch, the whole pile, is the amount of pesticide that he used for one cropping season. Yes. And these are pesticide used in eggplant control of the insect in the Philippines. And as you can see, I don't know if any one of you recognizes this brand. And they buy this from the wet market. So you don't, sometimes they're labeled in Chinese, but they still buy them because they work. According to them, they're cheap. So we really don't know what's going on when they're using pesticides. And this is how they dispose of it. So, you know, you can imagine how much environmental and health problems that these particular practices do. So this was a survey done by our cooperator, who is a medical doctor in public health. Again, in the Philippines, so you see them: organophosphates, pyrethroids, and then phenolic diamide. And from what I understand from the ranking, you know, the lower the number, the more toxic it is. And this is the one that is highly used, and for sure because it works. This particular doctor works on public health, and so what she did is to look at where does the insecticide end up. And so she looks at residue in the eggplant, about 20%, both cypermethrin and chlorpyrifos, but most of them are in the farm. So typically people will say, okay, I'll plant my own, and then I will just bring to the market those that are sprayed. But you see, most of the residue stays in the farm where where the kids play. And if you look at the size of the farm, they're usually what you call backyard farming. So these are some of the health effects that have been also documented by Dr. Lu. Itchiness of the skin, redness of the eyes, muscle pains, headaches, and these are the common symptoms. This is the kind of personal protective equipment. If you live in my part of the world, it's hot, humid. Even if you give them protective equipment, they won't wear it because either they die from suffocation or they die from pesticide exposure. You can choose. Okay, so I hope that by presenting those slides that I have given you enough reason to believe that this is really something that needs to be solved. And the technology that we would like to use is the technology of genetic modification. So this project started in 2003. And it's been 15 years, if you're talking about 2018, and still counting. So we had some, the first 5 years, we have some very good milestones. We know that Mexico has a donor line that it has developed, and we know that it works. And this is a gene, Cry1AC, which has been used in cotton and some other crops like corn and soybean. It comes from Bacillus thuringiensis, and the transformation method used was by Agrobacterium. And so we asked the question, can we access this technology? not for R&D, but what we would like to do right at the very beginning is to make sure that it is understood that this is going to be for commercial release by public sector institutions. So, okay, so in 2003, a project funded by USAID was initiated, and it is a cooperative agreement between USAID and Cornell University-led consortium of both public and private institutions. And what we would like to do is to help develop and commercialize safe and effective bioengineered crops in Asia and Africa. So, the strategic approach is we develop bioengineered products. It's very difficult to talk about things when there is no product. So we said that our platform should be product, whether we talk about technology transfer, whether we talk about regulatory matters, technology, and public outreach and communications. So the strategy is just to use a single event. So Mahiko bred into popular local eggplant varieties of India, Bangladesh, and the Philippines, and the partners would be the public sector. And then each of those different local varieties that have been converted to BT would be submitted to the different biosafety authorities in their respective countries. And the data developed by Mahiko in India for event EE1 would also be made available to us. So they talk about public-private partnerships. So we have also a PPP and also a South-South partnership. So Mahiko is an Indian company, and the public partners are in India are all public research institutions. So Satguru and Cornell facilitated the intellectual property and technology transfer. So the photos here just show the signing. So that was a big milestone for us when those agreements, licensing agreements were signed for the three countries. In addition to the licensing agreements, Mahiko also provided capacity building and technical assistance to the different public sector partners. 2-month training of breeder and entomologists were done in Mahiko, and they shared their protocols and materials for the assays, molecular assay and entomological assay. And then they are always willing to come and or receive us or host us for the different types of technical assistance that we need. So these are the two Filipinas. It's in the three countries have three different teams. That India and Bangladesh are all men, and the Philippines are all women. So we have really good gender balance in this project. So this is just yes, okay. So I'll try to finish, and I'll present first the journey in Bangladesh, because this is the most successful, the least expected, but the one that succeeded up to the delivery phase. So the product, so these are the different activities. So we have the product concept phase, early development, advanced development, approval, and delivery. So as you can see, Bangladesh was able to complete within the period of the three phases of the project. So in 2003, they were, by 2010, they're able to complete the back crossing. They did the multi-location trials in different locations in Bangladesh. And then by October of 2003, the regulatory approval has been granted, and 4 eggplant varieties were released. And in January, a few months after this, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture of Bangladesh distributed seeds to 20 farmers. Talk about political will. And then seed production and distribution were continued from 2016 up to the present. So these are the different varieties of eggplant that is important in Bangladesh. So these are the activities, early development activities. This is an example of a non-BT, and this is the BT version of it, so it really works. And these are the 4 varieties of eggplant that have been approved by Bangladesh for a commercial release. So this is the photo. She is the Minister of Agriculture, and she was very happy to give out the samples of seeds to the first 20 farmers. This is a summary. Does it work in farmers' field? Yes, it does. And as you can see, this is the percent benefit over production cost. So this is the BT, is 107 times. And if you look at the actual real money, then you can really see that there's a big increase. This is the adoption rate. You know, when they first approved it, the minister gave it to 20 farmers. That was within the span of 5 years, the 20 farmers became 33,000 farmers. And from a 2.69 hectare area planted to BT, then as of 2018, it is 1,371 hectares. And that would be around 25, that's only 5% of the total crop area and 22% of the total number of farmers who will adopt. Some of the photos, as you can see, this is typical. The house is here, the eggplant farm is here. So if the residues stays in the soil and in the water table, then you know how environmentally and health damaging it is to the people who live there. So this is another photo of a couple. This is a farmer in another area. And if you look at all the photos, I don't think you will see anyone who's not smiling. So, and that's the estimated total economic benefit of the introduction of this single gene technology. So what Bangladesh is doing now is doing scientists as well as farmers training. So I'll shift and I'll try to be very fast. So the same thing, same journey with the Philippines. This is our regulatory system. So we were able to complete up to 2012, about the same time that Bangladesh is also completing theirs. But then we got sued. And so everything stopped. And we go all the way. Instead of doing research, then we started going to the courts every day. So instead of this being delivered, so what we had is a complete overhaul of our regulatory system in the Philippines because of the Supreme Court decision. And but we're very happy that the court unanimously decided to stop and unanimously decided to reverse, which is nobody believed it will happen. And so we're posed for submission of the final application for commercial release, hopefully this year, under the new joint regulatory body. So just a few of the photos of activities in the Philippines and some of the key results and some of the projected benefits, just like in Bangladesh, this real benefit in terms of farm income. There are also potential socioeconomic impact. These are ex ante, but they're all positive and significant. So what did we do when we were sued? Because we cannot do any trial, and we are done with the contained use experiment, so we spend our time writing, publishing our research, presenting our research results in scientific meetings, We released the non-BT version of our hybrid so that people know how it tastes, because we know that the BT gene will not make it taste any different. And then we intensify the communication and outreach activities to the different various stakeholders. So this is the paper that we published in PLOS, and it tells you the field performance of the eggplant. It also tells you how much Cry1AC is expressed. So these are the different variation in protein concentration, highest in the leaves and lowest in the roots. And if you look at the temporal variation, then you can see it's pretty steady. So even so, it's a good expression, because then you get the crop protected from the vegetative to the reproductive stage. This is how it looks. So this is the non-BT. This is the BT version, the non-BT, and then this is how it impacts the insect. Just so this. No, I think I'll skip. Oh, okay. Maybe this is better. So all of this, this is the variation in shoot damage. So all of the ones that are on top are the non-BT, and then the BT are all almost flat lines. So very, very high effective control. And sorry for the very small numbers, but what it says here is it's less than 1% and very high in the non-BT. So those are all published, and I will just refer you to that. So this is the major finding. The Cry1AC is expressed without any problem. It's highest in the shoot, and again, it's steady all over the different vegetative period, and it could control the shoot damage to 98 to 100% and reduce infestation by that much. We also look at, we also publish our work on assessing potential impacts to non-targets and BT versus non-BT. Okay. Yeah. So the major finding is basically there are no significant impact of BT eggplant in overall arthropod communities. And then these are some of the presentations that we made. And a lot of our activities were on outreach and communications. We got support from a lot of people. We got free mileage, media mileage when we were sued. We didn't even need to pay for advertising. And we got also resolutions when we go and do our media outreach program. So from a bench scientist, we ended up, doing interviews in radio, TV, and whatever platform we can go to. We started writing not scientific articles, but also news articles and being in the internet. So so just to summarize, this is I didn't present the one in India, but this is the current status. So we all finished the trials, and the only thing that differed from the different country is that only Bangladesh was able to bring it to commercial release. We are hopeful for the Philippines, but the moratorium in India is still pending. So I'll end my presentation, and thank you so much for your listening.